Okay, we are now live, so we shall open the November 25th meeting of the Angola Investment Fund. The last meeting will be the minutes that we received from the last meeting will be taken care of with Andy, as will this meeting from the YouTube channel, because he is under the weather today and can't make it. So with attendance, let's start calling roll. Andy Aldred, Sandy Sanborn, Kyle Wainwright here, Isaac Lee here, Maria Davis here, Mark Collin here, and Retha Hicks here, and Jerry McDermott's here sometimes. At this point in time, I think we're all agreed that one thing that we would like to do is try to finalize our policies and procedures. And if we can get that finalized today, if we can get it to Kyler by Wednesday, we can get it on the next board meeting, which is Monday. Or if we wanted to have another meeting to finalize and then approve special meeting, we could do that first part of December and then have it ready for the 16th December, the second meeting. I think either way, we want to get it done so that first of the year we can hit the ground and start running with things and get the word out.
So that second meeting then would be
16th?
the 16th, I believe. Yeah.
So that's kind of what we're looking at. I thank Rita and Kyler for giving us hard copies of the red line version of our policies and procedures. Should we open up by just kind of asking if anybody has any questions? I went through it and it looked to me like it was okay, but I know we'd like to extend perhaps an opportunity for more people to be eligible to qualify for even smaller loans if possible. Am I right in that? So, I slipped since the last meeting. But when I went through it at home, it looked to me like Isaac has done a nice job with everything here.
There are two items, three different areas that I see I forgot to make some changes. So if you recall, one of the conversations we had when Kim, city attorney, was here, we had talked about how this is only for the city of Angola and cannot be extended to the ETJ.
Yes.
So on page 1 in purpose, I need to remove that second part of that sentence where it talks about ETJ.
Yes.
And then again on page 3 at the bottom, it's in red, it's referenced to ETG. So when we clean this up, if this is what we approve, I'll go through and I'll take those out, but the accepted version will get to council with those.
Okay.
Did we determine, I think we did, but did we determine under no circumstances can we go outside of city limits? Is that what we determined?
That's correct.
Yeah, when we read through it, it was,
I thought that's what somebody said.
yeah. Let me just ask really quick, did everybody get a binder at the last meeting? You do? Okay. I think I have probably yours in there. That's why we 3-hole punch these just in case, but I'll go grab it, Kyle.
So those were kind of the same item. The second or third item, however you want to talk about it, it's actually on page 4. It goes to the comments that are in red. It's really specific about the number of jobs. Right now, it remains unchanged to a project must lead to at least 20 new jobs. And I'm going to tell you that most of the projects we worked on, this is one that we've been very loose with in terms of making sure that our loans that come in are hitting that number. We've typically approved less in the past. I always look at it from an economic development standpoint, case by case. What is it that we're actually doing? We've had 2 years now from our office and the incentives that the cities have done, towns have done. We have seen a large amount of investment in personal property and less in new jobs. Doesn't mean it's less significant. In some cases, it means more capacity, more revenue for most companies. It also means a lot of retraining. But not every investment that we're gonna look at is going to guarantee that number of jobs. So how we articulate it, I think is open for discussion, but to put a hard number of 20,
I'd propose we remove it altogether. Because a lot of times, the money we might be using might be to save a half a dozen jobs they might be using.
Well, I think on some of the other stuff that you've added too, that you put an indicator of what the goals are, and maybe those goals can be put in that place. Is that there was a listing of goals.
qualifications, eligible investors,
Uh,
factor reporting.
Yeah, it was in the impact reporting, and it was talking about the goals of the loans. To stimulate economic activity, enhance the community's appeal, and foster sustainable business growth in the city of Angola. I'm wondering if those maybe can be
What
put
page are
in
you
that
on
place. I don't have the page number.
Oh, okay.
It printed-
I got them all out of
Yeah, you
sorts.
have them in order. Mine are all out of sort, but it's under, I think it's in a couple of places, under the AIF Commercial Retail Loan Program. It's on the page after that, under H. And I believe it's also listed in another location as well. And I'm wondering if that needs to be clarified also in the purpose. Because one way or the other, either in that area where you start talking about the 20 new highly skilled in that location, or as part of the purpose. Because it's listed as a potential part of the commercial and retail loans. Also, is it okay? You're not finished with it. What?
No, I'm done.
Oh, okay. Is it okay if I? Okay. So one of the things too, in the additional parts, there seems to be, we were talking about jobs and equal growth. So it appears that that looks like the intent also in the AIF entrepreneur loan program. It says in B, underneath that section, while specific job creation is not mandatory, applicants should outline the number and types of jobs supported. I don't know that that's clear that I'm not sure if that means jobs equal growth or specific jobs being, like if you're a waitress, add that, or you're just saying that, should it just say while job creation is not mandatory? Rather than specific job,
I see. what
just for clarity. Because we were talking about
We
the
did say
job.
sample KPIs, but doesn't insinuate you
Yes.
have to use them.
Right,
No, it's a good point. I mean, I tried to use language that was softer on the entrepreneurial and the commercial loan to match today's economic environment. And a lot of our communities, a lot of our businesses, investments have been less focused about jobs, more focused about capacity. And I personally feel that's equally as important.
I think improvement of a business is improvement of a business regardless of how they wish to use the funds. In
I mean,
terms
I
of
think-
job growth.
There should be some parameters on that for what that looks like, but
If
I
we lose,
agree.
if we leave B, loan terms, if we leave that B in there that you talks about 20 new jobs and $60,000 wages each, we might as well put this thing out there in the trash.
Right. That, like I said, that one, it does not, and my comment says it does not match today's environment. Not for every project that we've done.
Almost either one, the 20 new jobs or the wages.
Yeah.
yeah, so being able to like connect those two to make it make sense, I mean, I don't know if I'm clearly saying, or explaining what I'm saying, that if you keep one or the other, you're basically saying jobs equal growth, right? But if you delete B underneath the traditional loan, should you also delete that idea of jobs for the smaller loan for $25,000 or under? Because it talks about specific jobs, it aren't mandatory, but you have to list the jobs that your business supports. And could that also be transferred also to your traditional loan program? That same wording, as well as the other wording that I was talking about the goals of the loan.
I think, yeah, they should say the same thing. I think both sets of loans should have the same issue or same requirements or the same wording.
It almost has to be a little different on industry versus commercial on what you're,
Most incentives, if you look at state as an example, they're gonna have some emphasis on job creation. The numbers changed,
yeah,
which is what my comment suggests is, what is that number?
right.
Can we peel it back to say, case by case, we'll evaluate based on what they say? And kind of give us that leeway. Most state incentive programs, as it
Yeah,
falls in line with other industrial programs, are gonna be job specific. The other ones, commercial, retail, that's really hard. And you're definitely, if you leave the excess of 60,000 each, you're not gonna get it on
there's
that.
no way. Yeah, I agree with your comment on here that does not, that doesn't match. So for the B under that traditional loan, I'm just wondering if there has to be some separate, I mean, I feel like some job creation would be good. I don't know if today's environment, I mean, I don't disagree with Maria on does that equal growth just because they're creating jobs? I don't know. I don't have a good answer on that. Kyle, what are your thoughts?
Same. I mean, it doesn't, more jobs doesn't necessarily equal growth. Could be worse for the company, actually. It just depends on if the job is going to generate revenue, at the end of the
Yeah.
day. So I don't think we should put that stipulation for job growth at all on there. Just my opinion, but
You think that for both,
yeah. For
But do you
both.
think that there should be something different with the commercial versus the industrial, or you really, it's okay across the board?
It's almost two different things. I think the startup one is going to be kind of tough. The entrepreneurial one, it's going to be a tough loan. I mean, it's going to be your most risk.
Yeah.
We're transparent, we're taking a gamble on probably the person that's coming to present, or to apply for that loan. So I think there should be probably more parameters around that. And then the business or the bigger one, the other traditional loan, the business should be able to speak for itself if they're coming to you for that loan.
then we, based on what they tell us,
Yeah.
would determine what we.
And we're gonna analyze, that's why I would like to just leave it out completely, because we're gonna analyze tax returns. I mean, we're gonna beat these people up.
For the existing businesses.
Yeah.
But what he's saying is not have stricter parameters for the entrepreneur because,
We still have to
The
approve
risk
it.
is greater?
We still have to approve it at the end of the day. So don't forget that. But I do think that the risk is much greater on that side.
I think at some point, you need just to let the 6 or 7 people or 8 people on this board analyze
Yeah.
all the facts and just make good
make it
decisions.
good.
Versus make the parameter so hard that this kicks out
We don't even apply.
95% of everybody that applies.
Yeah.
And well, maybe just rewording it and like taking out the specific job creation, but applicants should outline the number and types of jobs supported that currently supports and hopes to support maybe in the future without specifying.
Numbers per se, yeah.
Yeah. And maybe that's the same with the other one, using that wording. I mean, parameters for growth, I mean, do those need to change? I mean, even though the state uses those, I mean, and this has to comply
Well,
with
they've
that.
changed at the state level too. But job growth is still, under the current administration, it may change in January, but job growth is still a key indicator.
So these policies and procedures give you as a board the ability to, I mean, it still sets enough parameters. It gives you the ability to be like, this may not be worth the risk, or I think this is worth it. Like it gives you that ability as you review it and vet it without having all of that spelled out.
Yeah.
How thick was that again?
About a ream and a half, Jerry.
Okay.
Oh my gosh. Mark's like, yeah, I do that all the time. That gives me a headache just looking at.
It's not easy, and this isn't free money. That should not be perceived as free money. It's a task, and all three are going to be designed the same way. Whether it's companies' assets that you're reviewing or individuals' assets, those might not be as thick, but you're still asking for a lot of material. And then, I mean, I trust that the seven of us can come to some conclusion to be able to recommend then to council, hey, this is a good idea that we should invest in. If we can't do that, then
I mean, when you think about them borrowing, that any company that's gonna borrow, they gotta pass the test of qualifications via tax returns and personal financial statements and all that. Then they gotta pass all these requirements.
Yeah.
And then they gotta get past us that are gonna look at it and scrutinize it. Then they gotta, I mean,
and most, I gotta think about this, but I'm pretty sure most notes that we have done, if not all of them, have been secondary position to other notes that a commercial banker would have done. So they would have gone through a similar process. And if they're not banking, if they're not lending them money, then we shouldn't either, in theory, right?
Yeah, there's a reason for such things, yeah.
It's not always the case, but the project just might not be the right fit for certain banks. But I think we've got a lot of things that we can look to as key indicators that said, yes, this qualifies. Yes, we should do this. No. And those are just some of them.
So taking out that actual numbers and being more general and what we believe growth is without striking job growth, without necessarily placing a specific number, but maybe noting it.
I
Would it be
agree.
a good idea on both of those?
Number, it give you longevity, number of jobs and specific wages. That would open it up. Most city council is not approving an abatement for anything less than $20 an average wage. I would imagine if they're using that philosophy on tax abatements, it's going to apply here too.
Yes.
So, I mean, I don't know that we have to account for the specific number of jobs or specific wages. The emphasis is, towards those types of programs, but understanding that.
I also think if a business is going to expand, eventually they're gonna have to, I would think, add jobs, or they're still growing. So
You would hope that that's part of.
That's part of that.
That
Yeah.
expansion would include additional.
What we've seen is, a company wants to expand, even if they don't add jobs, they're making their current employees more valuable because what they're adding is, in some instances, automation. And that automated equipment's not easy to run. So they're going to cross-train these individuals on multiple pieces of equipment, with most of them getting some sort of pay raise to do it.
I was just gonna say that some of them, I think, are finding other ways to incentivize employees with higher pay. So maybe they aren't adding 20 new jobs, but we're okay with that because they're gonna maintain their employees and hopefully grow
So
their inventory and grow their output.
Oh, good. So,
I think that makes sense.
so are we all in agreement then, or should we take a vote?
I'm good with that.
Okay, just, I
Think that,
think I'm okay with that. If you all are.
Yep.
Okay.
I got a question, and I bet it tells me in here, but I bet I just missed it. When we look at a loan, this group looks at a loan that approves it or denies it for whatever reason, what's the formula? Is it 2/3 of us have to agree? All of us have to agree?
it's always been a simple majority. Now, I would tell you, if sitting in front of council, I would love all of them to say yes.
Yeah.
It shows weakness if we were to come to the body, to Jerry's body, and say, hey, this barely squeaked by us.
Mhm.
That makes sense.
We wouldn't say that, but Jerry, I mean, I think he would tell the rest of the council that, this is where everybody stood to be transparent. So,
And I don't see us disagreeing on, I don't see that happening. I was just curious what the rule of thumb was.
Yeah, I wasn't honestly sure either, so I'm glad you asked.
so it's always been
I would
simple.
just think that, yeah.
We need to dig into the entrepreneurial one a little bit further. Before we move on.
Yes, if you'd like to, Kyle.
Mr. Entrepreneur.
Mr. Expert.
Mr.
Yeah.
Entrepreneurial team.
I'm just thinking from a business owner standpoint and then from a risk standpoint from our side.
Yeah.
And this is where we're going to have the most trouble. So I feel like this is where we need to probably outline the most. We talked about personal guarantees earlier and credit checks as well. This is probably where we'd want a credit check, in my opinion.
Right now, the application said it requires a credit check, period.
Okay.
The conundrum that I was having is, is it on one of them, like the industrial side, you're looking at a credit check for the industry or for the
Yeah.
business because they're generally more established. On the entrepreneurial side, you're more or less going to look at the individual.
Yeah,
So clarity to make sure that we're pulling the right credit check from the right entity
sure.
is clarity.
That also brings up this, the liens and everything
Mhm.
when it comes to maybe a commercial retail loan, because a lot of those folks rent their spaces. So you're looking at potentially someone's home, because that might be the property that they have.
So are we making just a blanket statement? Anybody who applies for the traditional AIF is assumed it's a business credit check and anybody else is a personal?
What if there's
Mr.
not-
Banker, what do you think?
What if there's not enough history there on the business side?
We run personal on everybody. So, if it's your business, we're going to, we'll look at your personal financial statement, but we're going to look at you personally because you're going to guarantee it.
Yeah.
And it makes a difference too, because some of our businesses are no longer local businesses on this industrial side.
Right.
So which person are you pulling credit on?
The nationwide or,
The corporation?
Yeah.
The CEO, the COO?
yeah.
So it makes it a little bit difficult.
Kyle, how old were you when you started your business?
20.
See, right there,
Did you have a credit report?
No, I borrowed $1,000 from my grandparents.
Bootstrapped it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if we looked at, if Kyle was going to apply with us for something, we wouldn't look at his name of his businesses. We would look at him personally as a guarantor.
And what collateral would there be? What, because you're talking about,
Yeah.
liens and stuff like that. I mean, what?
I mean, I have a line of credit now and collaterals are inventory. So that's a lot of it. And then just personal property in the business.
And that's what I would think you would be getting into the commercial retail loan. I mean, you want to talk about risky, you're like pretty much putting up your life
Yeah,
for $25,000.
yeah. And
So that's,
Well, I'm going to get overruled on this one too, and it's okay. But the one where under E, number one, where it said, or A, where it says a business must be a startup or in the early growth phase, less than 3 years. That's saying we want to lend to the riskiest. What's wrong with lending to a business like Kyle's that's been in business for 5 years? Where a lot of the risk is gone.
right.
Well,
Why less than 3 years?
well, keep in mind, this is under just the AIF Entrepreneur Loan / Grant Program. This was the one that was capped, the pilot program, at 25,000. So that's why I kept that in there. I would agree with you though. I mean, if a business came along that was commercial, retail, or industrial, and they've got similar history, yeah, we want to do our research. But this one is only specific, that language is only specific under the entrepreneurial side. Because the idea is we do want those to transition to growth companies. But there was also the idea that it would transition to a grant and forgivable.
do we think that amount is too large then? $25,000, because that is equal to the commercial retail loan program, right? And should they be equal? And also, when you look at the loan grant program, and if somebody doesn't pay off that loan, does it turn into the commercial loan? And does it then fold over into the commercial loan and the payment process become exactly the same as the commercial retail loan? I mean, that's just, when I'm looking at it, that's what I'm seeing, is they're not, it's not really a separate thing, but if they're tied intrinsically together if somebody isn't able to pay back that loan, like say if they are the same amount, 25,000. I mean, if you're gonna do risky, I would think you wanna go lower in the amount of money that you're gonna risk, because they haven't been established for that long, and their needs might be minimal at that point in time. And then as the commercial loan is a more established business at 5 years perhaps, and then that $25,000 becomes an easier situation. That's just my thought. So you're not risking, and maybe you can make up some of that entrepreneur loan or grant, however you want to call it, through interest paid by the larger loans, so that you're risking less, they're risking less, and it doesn't turn into the commercial loan.
But can we
That's
go
just-
like up to 25,000?
Yeah, it says maximum loan amount is 25 and split in two. And we mirrored that off of one of the first forgivable notes that we gave to a project that came out of Trine.
Okay.
And we did it in over 2 years. Each year they got the maximum amount, which was 12.5.
Okay. If someone were to apply for 25, but we think
You could go lower.
we could recommend.
Yeah, I've written in a way that allows you that opportunity.
Okay.
Actually, all of them, all three of them are the same way. You got max caps, but then you have the ability to go down lower.
This might be kind of what Maria just said. If we're less than 2 years or 3 years on an entrepreneur, why couldn't we consider that a potential grant? And if we're over a set period, if it's an entrepreneur that's 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, then we don't even offer the grant process. It's just strictly a loan.
I think it's a difference for an entrepreneur, and Kyle may know this best. Difference between making money and not. Because that doesn't always happen in
In the first
Your
couple of
first
years, you're
year.
probably not.
the moment it starts turning profit, then I would agree with you. It's like, okay, well, now you got to start acting like a business. So you understand that most of these notes are not going to have 0% interest. You just pay when you want to, or when you can. It's going to have some terms to it.
Are all the loan or grant programs, it says the loan may not exceed 50% of the project cost, at least 10% shall come from owner equity, up to 40% may come through conventional financing. Are all of them going to be that, or is it different for the entrepreneur program? Like if they're coming to us for a loan, are they coming for a project, and are they funding half that project, or are we?
So because we had limited conversations, here's what I was,
Yeah, no,
here's what I was
okay.
thinking about it. I left the commercial note and the entrepreneur note very open for
Okay,
dialogue. That's the purpose for us to have these types of conversations,
Yeah.
case by case.
I think you did a great job, by the way.
Well,
We still got a long way
Really
to go.
did. I was looking through it, and I'm like,
so
I'm so glad you were.
I wanted each case by case to present itself.
Yeah,
I didn't want the application or the requirements of the application to block somebody.
sure.
It's like, it just come to
Make
us
it
and
case
talk.
specific, is, yeah.
But that language on the first part, the loan terms, comes from the origination of this note. I mean, back when the ordinance set the terms and then we set the application for the original AIF. And in that time frame, that body was only comfortable with those terms. So as we have grown the other two programs potentially, you could start to see how these other two programs would be maybe a little bit different than that.
Sure.
Because again, I on the commercial side, maybe that's not what, our resident banker sees in the real world. I don't know.
Seems like, well, I think we are capable enough to help to see through things and make decisions based on what's presented to us too.
I am concerned about what the difference between the entrepreneur grant program is going to be, what's going to be the clarity of that difference and the commercial loan, because, you know, the forgivability of it, and then if it doesn't get forgiven, how that turns into the loan and how that gets processed. I think that's going to be an important part of how that process is going to go, because the only thing that's really spelled out, or even to a general idea, is that the way that the commercial loan, the qualifications for the commercial loan, if you're going to go with the $25,000, right? So basically you're asking these 1 to 3 year folks who are startup that you may be putting up your own home, you may be putting up, that's what I'm seeing in this. You may be putting up all this collateral to make sure that this project works. And I think we have to determine, just be more specific and clear what project means. I know that we have the purpose of the loan funds under this shall be limited to one of the following. If we just take 1 to projects, turn that into word project, so people understand that what exactly project means. Like the project is to purchase machinery and equipment, project to create working, to build working capital, to inventory. And I know that's small, it's just a small word change, but I think for clarity for those people who are gonna apply, that they might not understand the word project. And then when they look at the purpose of the loan, and it lists those things. So because they might think, oh, no, you know, I've got to develop a product, and that could be a project, right? Which it could be, but so could all these other things be projects too. So that's just a word thing for clarity that I saw.
If I would, my personal opinion, again, it's nothing more than opinion, and that is if it's not a startup, to me, it doesn't matter if it's a loan application or an entrepreneurial. If it's not a startup, these rates are so good that it ought to automatically be a loan. It'd be a loan. A grant, to me, should come into play when we have a startup business that we're sold that is just a great idea, and we want to help that business get started. Then maybe we want to grant them some money.
So we should just make it a grant rather than a convertible loan.
Yeah, but
For
I
the
think
startup.
for the startup, I think everything else should be a loan at some ridiculously low rate.
All of them are designed the same way, 2% below prime, never below 2%.
Well, the amount of money though, that to me poses an issue of whether somebody's going to say, am I going to apply for a loan or am I going to apply for a grant? They're going to apply for the grant because they want, you know, the money. So is that amount going to be lessened for the startup to reduce everybody's risk?
Is that something that you guys want the availability to determine? Because I hear what you're saying, and just in my head, I'm thinking you're not gonna be able to cover every one of those details or what their thoughts are or what their financial situation is. So I
See why it
think,
took so long to write these?
I know, but I'm thinking if you guys have that ability to determine that risk, you know, they might determine their own risk and you might look at it and go, oh, no, this is way riskier than what you're thinking. Like,
Yeah.
that's what you guys are here for.
Right.
And your expertise and your knowledge. So to be able for you to have that set where you can determine that, hey, you're applying for this, but we actually think we're going to do this and this. We're going to split you in phase 1 and phase 2 of this or whatever, to me makes sense. And maybe you think it does need to be spelled out. I don't know, but
I feel it's easier to be more spelled out as far as the demarcation between the two programs, because it's going to be hard for us to determine if it's for a $25,000 loan. Well, maybe this would be better as a grant. You know, what if it comes in and maybe it's better as a grant, or vice versa. Maybe this is better as a loan, because are we going to have them go through that whole entire paperwork process again if it's going to be, and I don't know what the paperwork process is going to look like for the grant.
For all three.
It's going to be the exact same. So.
And that's a lot.
Is that going to be us that determines that? I just think it would be easy for us if there's a demarcation line that we understand pretty clearly.
I kind of like what Mark said about the loans being a loan, and then startups, if we think it's a great idea, that we have that power to.
So everybody's coming in and we should view them first and foremost as a note, as it's a loan.
It's a loan.
I think so.
Well, then we would need criteria to turn it into a grant. I mean, if everybody's got the same paperwork and everybody, how do we determine the viability of something to decide whether that is going to be a grant?
Yeah, I agree with you. Stuff. It's just gonna be
There's a 7-0 vote to make
how
it a
well they
grant.
sell us.
Has to be a full 7-0 vote.
I just wonder if we should change the entrepreneur loan and grant to much lower than 25K.
That's what I'm
Maybe
thinking.
max it out at 10,000. And then it would go over to a loan on these other ones for commercial and AIF. Because then if they do apply for a grant and we don't approve the grant, they could still be eligible for a loan.
And then a couple,
Or what if
3
funding on
years,
the
they
grant
could get
side runs
another one
out?
if needed.
Yeah, or what if the grant funding dries up, or, we want to move over towards a loan? I don't know how that's going to work, but we'll have to discuss.
I like also the idea of the loan is that we'll always have money in the fund.
Yeah.
That way. It won't
I'll
disappear.
say the city don't want us just to give away a bunch of money.
Yeah, you might want to.
And if they've got tax returns and they can show that they're making a little bit of money, they don't need a grant.
Yeah.
They need a low rate loan.
Mhm.
I think at the end of the day, looking at these three programs, I wanted to give some context to them, but also offer the opportunity to not block anybody from coming and giving a presentation to this board.
That's what I was just going to ask you. So, because I haven't been a part of this, they apply, then they come in and present to you guys what their plan is, what they want to do,
Yes.
what their business plan is, or just.
Historically, individuals, however they're introduced, whether it's Kathy or Jerry in this case, myself, and however they're introduced to AIF, we get them a checklist of items that they have to go through and produce for us. They get sent to either me or, in this case, again, Councilmember McDermott. From that point, and I would stress at that point, get them to me, because once they get to Jerry, they're open. I mean, it's fun.
Okay.
I assemble them. I do a first run through. One of the questions I had for later is, I can send this to everybody, but I still have the same concern.
Mhm.
It's like the moment I send it to the full group, it's open. So
Right.
that's some of the members in the prior AIF boards have wanted to see those, and we've shared them. Then they end up coming and presenting after I come and just basically provide some overview and a recommendation, no difference than tax abatement. The individual presents and during exec session, the individual leaves. We still continue to have dialogue. We come out of exec session with either a tabled motion for the next meeting so that we can have further conversations or at least think about it, or we vote that night. That's typically been the process.
And before, am I right, before we would have somebody come and present to us, you or a couple of the members have looked at them and are comfortable, and
Yeah.
yes, from a qualification standpoint,
Yeah.
they're good.
Okay.
Yeah.
So by the
Because I wouldn't
time
wanna
they
bring
get
them in to
here,
do
they've
that.
already been.
Kind of vetted.
Yeah, I know. That's what I was thinking. Okay.
No, and I would agree. I would much rather have each one of you take a look at this stuff, because I'm looking for very specific things. You might be looking at things differently, and I'm always open to those perspectives. You know, I have expertise in this area, believe it or not. So I would like for you all to see this, but understand, in most cases, this is a very intimate part of somebody's life.
Yeah.
And
No,
You have to follow
completely
certain
agree with
ethics.
you.
Mark, you guys take classes and degrees on this stuff in banking.
I mean, at the bank, they call it the death rule.
Yeah,
Something gets out about somebody's finances, you're fired. I
yeah.
mean, it's just that simple.
Yeah.
So it's very, It's taken very seriously when you have this sort of information, which is, again, why,
As it
Should be, yeah,
why we kind of handle it. So,
yeah,
Even more so in a small town.
amen.
so again, I always wanted to get people in front of this body, so that they could tell their story.
Yeah, no, I like that. Okay.
Can I summarize what I'm hearing? I mean, as far as, what the process is, it's just the idea of every application, since they are all the same, would come in as a potential loan, as a loan. And then at some point in time, we would look at that and say, would this be better as a grant? And we would have some criteria to define whether that is a grant, whether that's all 7 a unanimous vote that it should be a grant, or some other criteria that's decided at some other point. So I guess it would, in the ordinance, it would be, or in the policies and procedures, it would be very broad in its description that the AIF can decide to convert a loan into a grant.
I'll add one more wrinkle. We recommend, we don't decide anything.
I mean, okay, yes.
We recommend to the
Yes,
council.
we recommend to council that would be a grant, right? Because we believe so, and we would have to meet certain criteria for that, whatever that may be.
If it wasn't a startup, what would be a reason that we would want to transfer a loan to a grant? If it wasn't a startup,
To me, there is not.
I don't.
I've not come across
What
a
if-
reason to do that.
What if, I don't know. What if a local business caught fire or something like that? We would have to step in and help, or we would want to step in and help. Like that could be an opportunity for a grant, in my opinion. Hopefully they would have insurance and all that sort of thing. But as a group that wants to help local community, like in that circumstance, I would say, like,
I see what you're saying.
trying to
Yeah, there's definitely,
Yeah, I guess, yeah.
There's
there wouldn't be a lot of circumstances like you're saying, but
That would be an extraordinary
yeah,
circumstance.
it would.
So would it take extraordinary circumstances in order to convert all these things that are presented before?
We probably didn't think there was going to be any grants until we had COVID,
Right.
and then we had a bunch of businesses that were in trouble and
Mhm.
Well, actually, we had this small carve out grant program before COVID.
oh, really?
It just
What did
blew
you
up
use it
when
for
you guys.
then?
So there was 2 businesses, one that located Leo area ultimately, but she was a professor trying. The other one ended up moving down to Fort Wayne and didn't take the rest of his grant amount.
Okay.
But it was the
So both
idea,
of those were grants to start out with.
Were they
Yes.
startups?
they were startups.
Okay.
So at some point in time, we'd have to figure out what those criteria would be, whether those are acts of God or, I don't know.
That one,
It depend on the amount that they're asking for too, I would think.
that one I struggle with too. I mean, Kyle, it's a great example. Yes, you'd want to help them, but that's not the purpose of this money.
Sure.
That sounds heartless. It's not meant to be.
No, I get it. But if
But
that
if-
same business applied for a loan to get back on their feet and get business up and running, that would be the purpose.
I would say
Yes.
if a business like what you described is in the middle of loan terms and something happened, we could do something.
Okay. And what if they
But
weren't?
if they applied for a loan to get them back on their feet at 2% below prime?
We would consider it. Or would we
I think then you're talking about a growth
Growth.
piece.
Yeah.
Not, hey,
Yeah.
for example, I had a fire, so you have to help me.
No,
This is
no.
like, come prove to us why you're.
I think it would be more of us like stepping in, trying to help.
And that's a good illustration. I mean, that type of dialogue is what we just had is exactly what I want every applicant to have with
Yeah.
us is
Sure.
come tell us why you think you want this note.
Yeah.
I do kind of like the thoughts of maybe lowering the grant dollar figure too, because I think especially if we're doing startups, I think we have to look at it like 90% of everybody that's an entrepreneur that gives us a pitch and we give them 10 grand. If it's a loan, we're not getting it back anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, because 90% of them are going to fail.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, I would propose even if they're really startups within 1 to 3 years, I mean, really going 5,000 and under, I mean, with a max of 5.
But I think that would be your determination as you look through.
Right, depending on if we went that route and said everybody applies it as,
We could say a max of X and then
Max of X,
Yeah.
10 or.
A max cap again and at whatever. and then-
whatever that might be.
Yeah, and
for
then
a
if you
month.
look at it and go, we want to help you, but we're thinking this
Yeah.
amount.
Do we need a grant?
Well, when
A
it
little
was.
bit heartless now.
Yeah, what's up with you, Mr.
Just hit it in your chair over
We
there.
wanna-
Um,
Grinch shirt on.
No, I think when we talked about, I remember going round and round with Kathy about this, Kathy Armstrong, and all of it was good dialogue. But when the grant program was created, we were concerned that we were missing out on opportunities to allow great ideas, conceptual ideas to grow right here.
Yeah.
A lot of the resources were in other places, not in Angola. Most of which were in Fort Wayne, and we felt we were losing too much. And with, Trine University and the talent, the innovation that's coming out of that school, can we help? There was this valley between, friends and family money that you often talk about
Sure.
and grandma money,
Yeah.
and where you're actually bankable. You can go
Sure.
to Mark and get a note.
Yeah.
And we were trying to fill that gap. And at the time when we allocated the 100,000 of the original loan amount, you'll probably find minutes somewhere during that time period that says, this is it. There's only $100,000. So as we drew down from that pot got smaller and smaller, smaller.
That makes sense.
And I still love that idea. I love the concept of that because I think that we are still missing a boat on some incentives for our Trine graduates and our, people coming out of the innovation. Like we're missing some opportunity somewhere to say, hey, stay here, start your business here, or, move your business here. Like, let us look at that. Or you've got this great business idea, do it here. Like, so I think that using that with the university and in conjunction with maybe some other incentives that we can kind of come up with. But I think that that's a huge economic development opportunity that we have that we've just kind of dropped the ball on, quite honestly. So getting this out to, to their alumni, to
Yeah.
their innovation center and making them aware that we have this opportunity, I think is where we need to go, to real estate agents, to all over. I mean, I think that it's a big deal that we can do this for somebody. We just haven't marketed that. So if we look at the possibilities versus what we've just done in the past, I think that there's some ways to move this forward. And so I agree with everything you all have said. I think, like Isaac said, the dialogue has definitely been good. Setting those parameters that you have the ability to do case specific instead of across the board, or setting a precedence that this is
we,
a way to
as
do that.
the bank, every year sponsors I forget what they call it, but it's the Entrepreneur Innovation One.
Yep.
At the college. And
Yeah.
we are, I'm a judge every year for the college students and the high school students. And I think it would be a really good idea if like you or Isaac was part of the judging,
Isaac, yeah.
because I mean, you're used to these people firsthand and you hear that. And there's some good ones. I mean, there's some good ones.
3 out of the last 5 years competitions.
I love that. I mean, I think you're so right, Mark. We
We've just
haven't
done it the last
stepped
2.
into that very well. And man, with the university here,
Some of those people are impressive.
yeah. Well, I've heard of some of their presentations, but I haven't been.
No, I was just thinking, going back to the grant, I'm seeing it also as a marketing piece. Because if people know that grant money is going out, then they are more apt to look at the other programs, the loans, and take advantage of the loans after, because if they're applying for a grant, you get the chance to talk to them about the other programs that you have too. And hopefully they will also tell other, like if they're from Trine, other students that follow or their cohorts that these things are available. So I'm not only looking at the grant program as something for startups, but also as a means to communicate what the importance that the city of Angola sees in new talent and also their potential to generate, create a business and
Therefore, jobs.
yeah, to be incredibly and to invest in our community, right? So that's what I'm seeing it also as. So it to me, the amount for the grant can be, and I feel so cheap about that, but fairly minimal. That's how I'm feeling about that. It can be fairly minimal, but yet it can do a lot. Especially, again, I'm going to go back to looking at the interest that's being paid on the larger loans and being able to maybe, and I don't know how I know the interest isn't going to be that much, but maybe that can be put towards a little bit to help pad that grant area.
I think one of the things that was so interesting when you listen to these people with the entrepreneurial skills, you'll have a couple of them that, they make paper snowflakes for Christmas and you think, well, that's awful. That's never going to do, But there's some really, really good ones. There was a girl that I think it was last year that had her own podcast and she'd been doing it for a year and a half. And it was, and she had hundreds and hundreds of followers, and it was over mental disorders and mental behavior. And she had suffered from mental behavior herself.
Yeah.
And she was 20 years old. And she was on for an hour once a week, and she wanted more grant money to get out to a wider. I mean, that's impressive.
It is.
And
It
she
is.
was so well spoken. I mean, just so well spoken. So some of them are
Yeah.
pretty.
Yeah, inventive. Like you
Yeah.
wouldn't think of something like that, but there's a need out there. People are clearly following and doing that. And I also think they're going to be invested. I mean, the stack of paper that Isaac brought in for one application, like to me, if I'm not, all right, but if I'm not invested, if I'm not here to go all the way, I'm not doing all of that. That's a lot.
That's a hurdle in itself. I mean, if
Yeah.
come to my office, or in this case, Jerry, receiving applications, you can't do that. I can't take you any further. I'm sorry. It's-
Yeah. So, I mean, to me, it's like, I'm buying into this if I'm going to go through that and then come and present and do. I mean, I know not everybody. And again, that's where your guys' expertise comes into play. But
I will say the former AIF board, when the grant program was created, we did not want to really talk about the grant terms. Because it insinuates day one, you get it and there's no recourse. The forgivable part, the transferable from a loan to a grant, was where we settled because we wanted the opportunity for that individual to show us progress. And that was the forgivable part. So it's like, yeah, you can have the money today, but you've got to show us. And that's why we never gave all the money in one shot either. Because if you took it and ran, went to Vegas somewhere, guess what? You're not getting the other part.
Right.
Because we really, in theory, we have limited recourse as a city entity to go after these dollars. We take second position to the bank. What's going to be left after that? Probably not much of anything. So that's the other side of it. So the notes that we do.
It's a risk for us too.
Yeah, the notes that we do, that's why we've been really focused on trying to make sure that the deals we give or the notes that we give, we feel very confident that they're going to provide some sort of return. Not always investment back, but some sort of return.
So how about this? I'm just going to throw this against the wall. So everyone's getting the same application, putting the same work in, whether they get a grant or anything. Maybe that $25,000, a portion of that is forgivable, which becomes the grant. So and you put a max on the portion that becomes grantable. So if you have 25,000, you save 5,000, I'm just gonna throw that. 20,000, they still have to pay back, 5,000 is granted.
Case by case, guys, you can do whatever you want.
I mean, I'm just saying that that could be an option
We
in there,
have-
rather than separating them completely.
We have flexibility for sure.
Yeah.
What interest rate applies to the grant money versus the non-grant money?
Let's just keep adding layers and more
Right,
competition.
well, I mean, I guess we gotta talk about it, because,
No, it's,
I mean,
like I said, I think I really struggled with trying to just keep this very much
Yeah,
an opportunity for somebody to open the door, to come present to us, and then gives us a little bit of latitude to define how that looks.
I'd like to throw something else out. Suppose, well, I guess it'd be more of a procedure that someone presents to us and we table it.
Mhm.
The reason we table it is the person that they had originally come to would then talk to them about the concerns of the board and see where they might want to go.
so they change their application or potentially say, well, you know, if we tell them.
This is what we're thinking.
Yes, and then they say, well, okay, I'll take the grant. You know,
Or
yeah.
accepts what we're
so we offer them that.
So we just just give them a counter offer.
no counter offer, yeah.
There you
Mark
go.
does that all day.
And then again, that brings us back down to the criteria
Right.
of what those things would be.
Are we good on this traditional loan program?
Yeah, let's,
Are we all,
That B item,
yeah, B item needs to be crossed out, we agree?
yeah.
That's the one that we're most clear on, I think, everybody, so.
I feel like you guys were good on the traditional, the concerns for the entrepreneurial, and I almost feel like you really, I mean, if you take all of your comments and everything that has been said, your action items really are, as long as there's a cap and you can go up to that 10 if you want to lower that amount, or 5, like Maria, or like, I don't know, she don't think, like.
They could ask for 10,
2.5, I don't know.
offer them
Yeah.
5.
But I think if you could come to consensus on that, are you wanting to wait until Sandy and Amby can weigh in?
I sent them out well in advance of the meeting with some comments back and forth.
Okay,
Sandy did send me a text right away and he's reviewed the whole thing.
okay.
So,
Do you think it's safe, to put in the entrepreneurial that grants are going to be used for startups only, with the exception of unanimous vote by the board, maybe? Do we make exceptions on special situations like Kyle was talking about?
since
But it
it's,
requires.
since it's new language, we can agree that that's the procedure. I would like to have a few individuals come in and actually see how it works with the group. Again, I'm gonna err on the side of, we got the bones of what we can and can't do with the money from the ordinance. Okay, so you gotta remember that's back there. So changing drastically the purpose of the funds too much, you gotta mess with the ordinance. You don't wanna touch that. So this is broad enough that allows that individual to come in, present the case, and then from there, we can come up with a recommendation, a counter of what it means.
What are we calling a startup too? That's another
A
question.
startup.
Okay, so this says purpose sustain operations, maintaining consistent operations for 24 months. So that would probably have to go.
Well, these are sample KPIs,
Oh,
okay?
okay.
So they're
Okay.
not in stone.
Yeah.
What I wanted to do is give us in writing some opportunities to think about, well, what would be a sample KPI? Each
Yeah.
business might be a little bit different. So that podcast example, what's a KPI for her? I don't know. Podcast listeners, you want to see growth?
I think any business should have
I was gonna say.
number 1, business plan, number 2, financials.
Which again, on the application checklist,
Yeah,
we get those. So
Yeah.
yes,
Startup's not gonna have those things. We could have a business plan, but probably not gonna have filed financials.
Yeah, probably not file, but I would at least get.
Monthly, yeah.
Get it set up on a monthly, have a balance sheet,
Yep.
P&L, all those things.
You could argue any business with a year or less could be considered a startup.
Yep, I would agree.
Yeah.
Do we want to get to the point where we're okay with someone coming in that just has an idea? Probably not, right?
Well, that was a second entrepreneur that we funded.
Okay. Backtrack.
So those are already.
I mean, it was an interesting idea. I think with some additional advisors and support, it probably could have gone different tracks, but
Yeah.
that one didn't pan out here.
I think that's what the grant program is for stuff like
Ideas.
that. And I think when we talk to those people, we just have to know it's a shot in the wind, and hopefully we can determine if it's a good shot.
I love that you said that, because I think when we asked for the approval mark, I specifically said to the body at that time, the AIF body, you have to be okay with giving away the money today and forget about it.
Yeah.
Because that's essentially what this grant program is. There's no return on investment, at least monetary, back into the fund. You allocated it, forget about it.
It's gone.
We still have the ability to approve it,
Sure.
but it's,
Remember that while you're,
yeah,
Right.
it's
You
gone.
have to be confident that this is worth the.
One of those warm and fuzzies that you can 10 years down the road say, I remember when we give them 10 grand.
Well, that was the other part to it. So you're bringing up all these things, let's say we do hit a home run with a $5,000 or $10,000 grant with a company that grows into something bigger, and they remember, hey, you know what? I got my start here. I want to contribute now. I want to be philanthropic. I want to put back into the fund and help others. That was a repayment method that we had talked about. We wanted to try to find those types. We're fortunate because we have innovation all around us, and Trine helps with that. Business owners like Kyle and others in the community help with that already. So we just wanted to make sure they knew there was an opportunity here.
I don't know, I might have missed it, but is there a qualification where they need to stay in town or stay within the municipal area?
So that is in the first part. Where the monies can be spent, has to be within the city of Angola.
Well, I mean, as far as after they get the grant.
Like that they continue their business here for a year because
So there's no recourse on the grant side if they happen to move like the two businesses did. There's nothing we can do. That's why I said, you give it away, you forget about it.
And that's one of the reasons why I'm saying.
Now, if they do that midstream of a grant, yeah, you can choose to say, you know what, we committed 10 to you. We've only given you 5. You don't have a nexus to City of Angola. We can't give you the other 5.
I like both. I think we should lower the amount on that entrepreneur grant
To 10,
to 10 is what I put on
5,000
here.
a year.
5,000 a year.
up to 10s.
Yeah, and then you would have the AIF commercial that you could still do up to 25,000. Would limit our risk a little bit on the grant side, or just the startup side in general, not necessarily grant.
Right. And then 100,000 for industry.
Yeah. Those are just my thoughts, so.
I'm okay with that.
Over here too, on the co-investment side,
Oh, yeah. I was going to bring it up. Kyle, thank you. 1-to-1. How you like that?
no. See, we're coming to us probably because they might be in the stage where they can't get funded by a bank.
Correct.
I don't love that for the commercial anyway. I think for the regular loan and the standard loan, I think that's probably fine.
so the D under commercial, which is the 1-to-1.
I would argue we need to make that an exception. The banker in me would say we need to make that an exception, because if they don't have 1-to-1 cash coverage,
Yeah.
it may be tough to pay us back.
That's where I got this language from.
But again, if it's the right borrower, maybe we could make an exception.
Sure.
As long as we look at it, knowing that most institutions have a 1.25 to 1 cash flow coverage. So us going to 1-to-1 is kind of a we're stretching a little.
Mhm.
If we go less than 1-to-1, we're kind of just banking that they're gonna pay us instead of somebody else.
I didn't read it like that. Maybe I'm reading it wrong. I thought it's saying that we need another co-investor to give the 25,000. Maybe I'm just reading it
This is
wrong.
cash coverage for the loan.
Oh, cash coverage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, I mean, we say is required, you could say is recommended
Yeah.
to give you some case-by-case flexibility.
I think we should make that change. And Isaac, would you be able to condense the concerns 5, 10, up to 20, or 5,
Yeah, I've been writing them down.
25 to and 100? And Maria, are you doing okay now? You feel with the grant, since the grant's still there?
Is it a loan, is it still gonna be a forgivable loan grant or just a grant?
I think the last time we went rounds on this, the council at that time would not look at it as a grant. They'd look at a forgivable note. They would not look at it as a grant.
Okay,
There is that feeling amongst the council, I would say.
So we have to be comfortable saying it's a forgivable note while we also talk in terms of it being a grant.
And lowering it to that
What's the
5.
difference? Just out of curiosity.
Politics.
Oh, I was gonna say, 'cause I don't understand what the difference is.
so with a 10 per, at a 10.
Your city council, city governments, town governments, all the same, don't typically and traditionally give out grants.
But we would help. If
So this is pushing a city government, in this case, in the fray a little bit.
My voice tells me I'm not very politically correct and I'd be a terrible politician. She's probably right.
So is everybody okay with the 10,000 max over the course of two years with that,
Yes.
changing that from the 25,000? And all the criteria is the same. And again, the question is, you know, they're putting up their personal property as a, if everyone's presenting this exact same paperwork.
Well, they're only putting up the personal property if they collateralize it and bring cash. The city doesn't have the ability to take a home or a mortgage or a lien. I don't think they want to store a car out back either.
Yeah,
so-
that was the question that I had, is that, because you've got
On a parking
the
space.
mortgage lien interest and all that kind of stuff.
Limited.
People look at that, they're gonna think lien on my home, lien on my,
My understanding, these are just all unsecured notes, right?
In theory, I mean, we take second position, so yeah, you go through, they go bottom up. I mean, you got several picking order people in front of you before the city ever gets there.
But if they ever defaulted, if I understand it right, if they ever defaulted, we may put a lien on their property or something like that. But initially,
That's it.
there's nothing. I mean, initially, it's just your signature.
Mhm.
It's if you're ever in default, and that's that way with anybody though, any loan.
And all the work we put in we should be
so
hopefully avoiding that.
we're just gathering that information from them in case
Yep.
that occurs.
Yep.
Or the 10,000
Fun stuff.
forgivable loan.
Yes, in below.
Ouchie.
I'm clear.
That's mud.
Clear as mud, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I have take out ETJs and stuff. Take out 4B under loan-term program.
And all the references to the
All-
categories.
Yep, all the references to the categories.
Think okay then as well. 4.
Are listed in section 3. Yeah, we take that out. Thank you. That's a good catch.
Oh, yeah.
Man. And then the co-investing, the 1-to-1 leverage, rather than required, recommended. 10,000 under the loan/grant program, the max 5,000 per year. Also the 1-to-1 recommendation under that program. And then the final red line is the $50 application would go to 100.
Okay.
Oh, what if scenario? Suppose we have a retail or commercial people that have taken a loan and have repaid it, and they have another good reason for another loan. Do they have to fill out the whole application again?
Is there a time frame?
Banker says yes. Okay,
I don't blame the messenger. I'm getting all this stuff from him.
I was just curious.
No, there's a reason because, again, you could say, okay, well, we already got a credit check from a year ago, but a lot happens in a year.
Yeah.
What happens in a month or 6 months? So
You won't look at financials again. He may need a loan now because he's not making any money.
Okay.
So you want to pull that stuff. Again, if you're serious about the note, the benefit is it's 2% below prime.
Right.
It's advantageous for you to go through this process to be able to leverage those funds.
And truthfully, nobody's going to apply for a loan that doesn't expect this.
Yeah.
True.
They're going to expect it.
So I'm just gonna say really quick, we have Board of Zoning Appeals in here tonight, so Brett will have to get the room set up. So if you guys kind of come to a conclusion on, I'm guessing that this is not, we're gonna take this
Well-
to December 16th.
I think we're okay, aren't we, with what we have here?
I can make those changes, and if you're okay,
What I'd like to
I
do,
would support
if we could have it by Wednesday,
this Wednesday. I'm kidding.
I laugh
I can
for
do it.
you, but
I can do it.
my thought is, we could present it to the council, then they can look at it.
Yeah.
Before the 16th.
yeah, if those changes wanna get made and if we get them sent out, if Andy and Sandy need to also weigh in on anything, if you guys are in agreement, I think that that's fine. Kyler just has to have it because she'll have to put this whole thing as an attachment with the city council
Yeah.
agenda. So,
I'll keep it redlined, but I'll clean it up a little bit so that council.
Yeah.
Well,
they might just,
maybe I'll provide both redline and clean cut copy.
I would do that. She could put the clean cut copy with the agenda and then we could have copies of red lines if they, or we could email that out, but not put it all with it, something, because that would be a lot. What do you think, Jerry? Because you're the one that has to read through all that and.
I think I think that the red line would be fine, because that way they see
Okay.
what we've done.
Okay,
what changes we've
Just
made.
don't tell anybody go backwards.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't want them to go, I like this wording instead of what.
They have their ability to, but
I've got one more question, I'm sorry.
Okay.
So there is no time frame to wait for the smaller loans or any of the loans, right? To reapply should.
Okay.
no, the way we've treated any of the prior programs, which includes the grant program, as soon as they met the requirements, they could come back. In the case of the industrial note, we've had 2 companies come back midstream of repayment, justify basically refinance up to the cap, and then they pay under the new terms. So we had a company, it was about 45,000 left on the note, wanted to take advantage of a new piece of equipment that they were getting. We refinanced the note up to 100K and the company paid it off.
So does this ever team up with an abatement, like if they're getting new equipment? It can. Okay.
It doesn't prohibit an abatement.
What do you gotta do for those abatements?
Well,
That's not easy either.
No. Did you want to talk about,
Project terminal?
yes,
I think I've answered my questions real quick.
okay,
It was more important that I give you guys a visual because I got to realize there's quite a few new board members for AIF.
Yeah.
And we talk about this loan application, but I don't know that anybody ever saw it.
No.
And Mark knows. I mean, this is his world, not mine. All of you have seen large applications. You've seen grant applications. They can be immense, but when you talk about them, it's different than when you actually see it. So it gives you some reference of what we actually go through. The point of clarity that I want to make sure this body agrees with is who gets access to this? How do we keep it? Because right now it's under project name. It needs to stay that way. The moment I transmit it to city council, it's a public record.
right.
We haven't made any decision on that.
we're an extension, AIF's an extension of city government. You've heard Kim's positions on the extensions of city government. So really, I want to make sure that it's open and eligible for you to review, but nothing that would trigger open public record, because at this point, I mean, they're not asking for a note. They're seeing if they qualify.
No, right, and I don't,
Approving a note,
I
yeah.
don't think until we know if they qualify, I don't know if that's you or who that is that.
Got 4:30 back, so I have to go.
Thank you.
Yeah, sorry to run out.
So I think for the purpose of this piece is, what I might do is I just might make a link available. I still maintain it and you can go out and look at it. Look at the full breadth of the application, but to actually transmit it in your hands.
No, I don't think so.
Hmm.
I don't want to know. I wouldn't want,
I'm even hesitant carrying 2 copies around because
I
again, it's
know.
paper, it's got individuals' personal data on it.
Yeah, that makes me nervous too. I just feel like I don't even think any of us need to see some of that
no,
information. He just left his chair spinning.
prematurely.
Until we know they're qualified. And is that just you and Jerry that determine that qualification or?
We've done it a couple different ways in the past. The former AIF board, before we made all the changes, it really resorted down to that board and that body waiting on me to do the first review, to give them and say, I've looked at everything it's a good project to at least consider.
Yeah,
That's as far as I went. That was not a vote yes, that was not a vote as in.
right. Let's
pass this,
take a
it was
look at
rubber
it.
stamp. It's just that
Yeah,
they've met all the requirements to this point. Now it's up to you to actually go through and decide. At that point, I did make sure everybody had a copy. But again, under the way the open door and public records look,
Right. I think you have it. We know where it is. If we want to see it, we could come to your place.
it's still tough.
yeah. I don't think I put it on a link either. I think out of respect and being very careful, yeah. I mean, I know our computers are secure, but I think that's,
I agree.
if the board is interested in seeing it before it gets to the point where it's time for their review or their vote or their presentation, if they want to look at it ahead of time. But that's just me and I don't have a vote, so I don't know
Well,
what.
and also you can give us your general opinions.
Well, like I said, in the past, what I've done is I've said they've got everything filled out. They would be an eligible applicant based on what I've reviewed so far, but that's not my vote yet.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, we have to deliberate as a body then. So, and it's really the same rule of thumb or rule of thumb for abatements. I'm coming to council giving you a recommendation. At that point, I go one step further and say, I recommend that you pass the tax
Right.
abatement. But the process leading up is identical. I'm having some conversations, at least initially, based on historical tax abatements, maybe some minor changes. We're going through that process, but we're able to deliberate over it.
I think what I'd like to see when we get applicants, all agree to table it so we can process for another month or so.
Absolutely agree.
That way we can see it firsthand too.
Yeah, I think we need to be careful what becomes public.
So that was, this would be for a traditional AIF project terminal.
Okay.
And I think I got clarity. In the past, we've asked for only personal credits. But the industrial sites, it's becoming harder and harder to do personal credit because it's generally not the person
It's somewhere.
that we're dealing with.
Washington.
So I think if the AIF board is okay with it, I'm gonna rely on the industrial side more on corporate and financials documents to justify that piece.
Agreed.
So
What we can do is if we could get the red line to the council for their,
If I have that, I can get it to Kyler. She just needs by Wednesday because we're closed Thursday, Friday. Usually it's Thursday. To get it on that next agenda, and she'll be working on that Wednesday.
okay. Then, and in the meantime, I wouldn't think we would vote on it Monday. I think we would on the 16th, but it would give Sandy and Andy also time to put their
So you want to get it to the council just for their review?
your further.
Oh, okay, and vote on it the next.
On the
Does it have to
16th.
be to you by Wednesday or can that be given to you on Monday? Since there's no vote. I'll get it to you.
It probably could just be handed out for them to take with them and review.
I'll get it.
I'm okay with
No,
that.
Yeah,
I'm not-
since it's not gonna be voted
If
on.
it's not gonna be voted on, yeah, if
I'm
he's
not
not.
worried about it. I'll get it out.
Well, but don't stress about it. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a holiday week.
Yeah,
If you
enjoy.
just get it to me that I can print off and have at their seats, they can take it and know that they're gonna vote on it. My only concern with that, and take this with the utmost respect, because it's just, I've seen the dialogue between just you guys, but then you get everybody else's red line, like opinions, and then you have lots of hands in it and everybody saying stuff like, then it's hard to,
We have 3 new council members that have never voted on an AIF. No.
oh yeah, so they may not even know.
What it is,
So you might wanna do a
brief
a
description.
brief. Yeah, and that's my fear, is that sometimes you get so many people
You'll have to come in.
looking at it and doing that, you know, and having their opinions not totally
Well-
understanding the whole picture. And I worry that
When we give this out, could you also make sure you attach the ordinance? Because they really go hand in hand,
okay,
especially for the 3 new ones.
that's good. Yeah.
Yep.
Remind me of that if you email that out, I'll get it copied and we'll get it out here. And yeah, if we're not voting on it, I'm okay with that, Jerry, if you
Okay,
think that that's
I
what
just,
you.
I feel better to get those two back, but at the same time, I think we've moved forward. And
So
first year, then we can talk maybe marketing in January and how we're gonna.
here's the thing is you guys, I don't believe you have a meeting scheduled in December. So if you are going to try to vote as a board to approve it, you're going to need to schedule a special meeting or something.
Correct.
And
So,
I don't know if that can be a regular meeting or Zoom, however you want to do it, we can work on that, but I think that you'll need to do that sometime in December and you don't normally do that.
well, or January. It's a slow time anyway, right?
But is this going to affect, are these changes affecting Project Terminal?
No,
Okay. I just wanted to make
This
sure
is
we
an
weren't holding that.
nope, it's an industrial one. I'm gonna try to get my review done with the hopes that we can follow the same schedule. Unless there's pressure from the company to get it done faster, then I would suggest a special
Then
meeting.
okay. We hear that, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, I just got documentation last week. I had one question about the credit report. And I should have everything to be able to review and get it from the body.
Excellent.
So at this point, when's the meeting in January? I'm trying to find it on my calendar.
Third Monday.
The third Monday? So the 20th? Yeah, 4 PM. I mean, that's totally up to you guys, but if you feel like something has to happen in
We vote
December.
on it, we recommend it to council. The council would
Right.
vote on it in the first meeting in February. Theoretically,
Yeah.
the company couldn't get the check until that following week. So that's the schedule I have to work with
Could the council vote on it on the 16th?
on AIF, the note.
Yeah.
So
we would-
technically, it's like
AIF would have to recommend we do a note with Project Terminal.
you're talking about the
I'm
changes.
talking about the change.
Oh, I'm sorry, changes, yeah.
So we could get that passed, so the council part's done.
Yeah, this,
Okay.
this.
By the
By the
16th,
16th.
if they review it and decide, and you might want to say, hey, we're working on the, you know,
Then it'll be
send
on
me your
the
changes, we
agendas.
can talk about this, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
But this board does a recommendation.
Yep.
Hopefully unanimous, hopefully positive, whatever that looks like to the council for the council's decision.
And that would be January.
And they can vote one night, that doesn't have to go through
Doesn't go through 3 readings.
3, anything like that, it's just an automatic. Okay.
That's a recommendation from a semi-quasi-government agency or body.
Sounds good. Well, let's go ahead and move forward. Let me get this straight. We approved the red line on 16th,
Council.
but we'd have to meet again to recommend it before council could officially act on it.
No, that is the loan.
alone.
What we're talking about.
Right, so the council, if you submit
Okay.
these rules and procedures by Monday, the 2nd or whatever, council has that time to review them. And then if they vote,
16.
right,
And this,
we could put the final, not the red line, but the final on the 16th agenda to be voted on.
perfect. Okay.
So we're looking at the December 16th for the no. Not to look at, no? Or
I
we're waiting
gotta
till
get-
February, potentially the earliest that they could ever receive a check.
If
If it's
it's time
approved.
sensitive on their project, then I will try to make sure that I meet public notice requirements to where worst case scenario, AIF would call a special meeting the first week in December so that we would give council enough time with a 48-hour notice for it to be put on the agenda. Because we would have to deliberate, come up with a recommendation before the 48-hour notice for council.
And at this point, the next AIF isn't until January 20th, so we won't have a recommendation vote.
If we.
The council till then.
But if we called a special meeting that first week,
Okay,
and I would still have, again, the 48-hour requirement for special meetings.
yes.
So
For this board, and then we have that week, that Thursday before the meeting deadline to get it on the council agenda.
I don't know,
So-
this time of year with holidays.
I know.
I know it's hard.
Yeah.
It is.
So are they, okay, that is that timeframe?
I'm gonna find out. Like I said, I just got all this information last week, so part of it is we're dealing with what we're dealing with. It's just timing.
Yeah, holidays and,
So, I mean, I'm unfortunate.
We won't meet unless there's a,
Government can't move as fast as, well, it's not necessarily, I guess, but in this, because there's pieces that the government has to approve on, they just can't move as fast as what a business might, like
Right.
might want to, or other entrepreneurs, businesses. Sometimes they want it done yesterday. It's like,
well, if Project Terminal needs to meet, we need to do that. We can certainly do that. I hopefully find a time in December.
I just gotta do it in advance enough for the 16th. So you're probably talking about a special meeting well before the 12th of December.
if you're trying to get it earlier than your, yeah, because then council's at February 3rd.
Yeah, so.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I know we have another body coming in. so,
Yes, we do.
We will adjourn our next event. Make a motion,
I make
please.
a motion to end the meeting.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. That's done now.